Hello and welcome to the latest instalment on the building of the Cirrus Moth by David Boddington. I've just completed the first part of the build of the fuselage. I'm quite happy with that. Before I push on with it, I'm going to actually do a little by way of a supplementary video, and that is sticking together these two plastic vac formed parts that are going to be used for the cowl, and I'll see how they turn out and what it looks like and whether I'm going to stick with that. So these have to be stuck together. Ordinarily, when I'm gluing plastic card, I use this product, Plastic Weld, which, as you can see here, it's a methylene chloride, nasty gear really, chemical. I've got none left, so I'm going to have to use some Plastic Magic cement, and I've got loads of this mainly because I'm not too keen on it, but we'll see. I'm going to glue it, clamp it and leave it alone for at least 24 hours. Then I'm going to trim off the excess and use some of that excess that I trim off to provide reinforcements internally. So the first thing to do is to have plenty of clamps available. I'm going to use these and we'll see what we can do. Before I cut any of the excess off, I'm going to give a liberal application of the cement. I'm going to glue it together and line it up as best I can. I'm not going to trim this off and then try and glue it, because I'm going to end up with a smaller surface area. And I know I'm gluing together material that's going to be removed, but it will help me line them up much more effectively. I'll then cut off the surplus and use the surplus for reinforcement. I think that's the way I'm going to go about it. So, here we go. You get a little brush, which, to be honest with you, is not very good, but never mind, let's go for it. I'm putting lots around the edge here. I'm not bothered about this part because that's not where the join's important. And I'm not gluing the parts that are going to be cut away, just getting plenty on here, and it's worthwhile putting some on the other part as well. And obviously the more you put on, the longer it's going to take to evaporate and set. If this works like the other material, it does literally produce a weld between the two surfaces where the two bits of plastic become fused together. So let's push them together now, and I'll try and line them up as best I can and use some clamps to help hold them in position. Line them up vertically and horizontally and clamp all the way around if I can. That's not going to hold. That will, however. And I might even go for some elastic bands as well and feed some more in. Yeah, it's going to have to be elastic bands because I can't get a full clamp on there. Now I'm going to go along here and feed more in to the join. And when this has been allowed to set, I'll cut it out and then I'll reinforce the inside. It's a case of leaving that, and then I'll come back. It'll be at least 24 hours on, and we'll cut it away and see what we've got. I just want it to hold in position, because the real strength's going to come in the next stage when I cut off the surplus. Let's take some of these clamps off and see where we're at. Now, this has to be removed, so I'm not taking it right to the edge. I'm simply scoring it, and with a bit of luck, it'll crack out. without too much force. Might actually use a saw on this part. Because the corner is going to be the most resistance, obviously, isn't it? Let's carry on. Pretty brutal, isn't it? Well, that's holding together up to now. I'm going to grab some scissors to cut through this part. Back with the scissors. Oh, getting there, getting there. Ha ha ha! That's me trying it on, being silly. Let's have a look. Now, before I cut any more off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of this to form reinforcement to go inside, and I'm also going to cut up some small pieces, put them in a pot with some of the solvent and fill it as a filler all the way around this joint. I know some of this has got to come out, but that's the intention. Let's start that process now. So I'm going to cut some of this surplus into small pieces. And I'll make it into a sort of liquid cement, putty rather. I've actually just spotted a nice container I can use for that rather than this one. I'll get that. Now I'm going to pour a little bit of this liquid into here. And I think I'll keep adding plastic to it actually. Here's me little cat Missy coming in to help. What's the matter, Missy? Do you want a fuss? Right, I'm going to leave this plastic in here and allow the solvent to do its work. I'll see to my little cat, and then we'll use that to strengthen the joint inside the cowl area itself. Well, actually, if I left this long enough it would all dissolve, but what I'm doing is I'm just laying the fragments into the seams And I think that's going to achieve the same end result that I'm after. And that is to reinforce this joint, because it is only a small surface in contact. You can see there, I hope, that I'm building them up, laying them in. I've got a little bit of Italian herbs mixed in as well. I don't think that'll make a lot of difference. A little bit of fiddle, but we'll get there. And I'll carry on all the way around the joint. Of course, some of this will have to be cut out for cooling for the engine and so on. But let's start with the strongest shape we can to begin with. We could always remove the material afterwards, but if it's nice and strong, that's what we're after. See the parts being added. And then I think the next stage of what I'm going to do, because it's very similar, is I'm going to use some plastic padding used for car body repair work. I'm going to smear it all the way along this area once it's been reinforced with these fragments. I think that'll greatly add to the strength. And this rough surface actually will give something for that to adhere to. I'm sure this will be perfectly adequate. What I have got actually is I've got some substitute, sorry, I'm concentrating here, some substitute asbestos padding. Obviously not the real asbestos because that's too dangerous, but I have some substitute stuff that I used to use when I was doing live steam boiler lagging. I may even consider lining the inside of here with some of that. We'll see. I think that's going to do the job really rather nicely. See if we can get another couple of these little fragments to go along here. Leave that to dry. It's starting to look the part. Any unevenness on the two surfaces, that'll be overcome with the padding as well. But I'm going to leave it like that to go off. I said 24 hours. I think you might need a lot less than that for this part, but we'll leave it. We'll see how it goes. And that's the next part of the cowl done. If I put it on the model, though it's not been cut out, you can see adds greatly to the character, doesn't it? It is meant to actually overlap this, and it's screwed on to hardwood bearers, but there you go, bit of progress made. Here's a sneak look inside, and you can see I've reinforced with some of the scrap, and it turns out actually that plastic cement that I've used, Plastic Magic, has worked really well actually, so I'm quite happy with it now. Tick that on the box. I'll use some of the car body filler to fill in the gaps between the reinforcement, and then when this excess is cut off, it'll be used to blend in the join lines. Then I'll have a totally smooth cowl that will then be hacked up apart again, only this time for engine access. But there we go. Really pleased with that. It's now 24 hours since I glued these parts inside, and the impact of the solvent was to really soften this area, and it needs to be allowed time to set, basically. This is now rock hard. I've pared away the flange that was sticking out the side, but obviously we've got some holes to fill. So I'm going to use a car body filler. This is just a, I don't know, big boy's plastic. It's a plastic filler, which obviously the clue's in the title. It'll work with this. I'm going to mix some up, fill it, and let it go off, and then we'll have a look at what we're left with. Okay. Now I always tend to overuse the activator, and to give you an idea of the quantities, to talk about something like a tennis ball and a pea size, tennis ball of the filler and a pea size of the activator. I'm just going to put a small, it goes off very, very quickly. Now that I've put on there is way too much, but it'll mean that it'll just go off very quick, but not so quick that I can't get the job done. So you need to thoroughly mix it. I'm using an old artist's palette knife here. Get it as thoroughly mixed as you can. And then I'm going to use this on the inside and the outside. I'll do the outside first to fill it. And the reality is most of what I'm filling is going to be cut out anyway for the engine, but it'll give me a nice solid base to work from. So we'll start applying this. I'm not too worried about the part at the front, because this will be getting cut out. So try to concentrate on those areas which I know won't be. I can feel that's actually starting to go off now. So just use what's left. And that's the job done. Time for a coffee. Leave that alone. And then it'll be wet and dry to take off most of what I've put on. Actually, I might need a second application, final application, to fill the parts that I've missed. Excuse the washing machine in the background. And there we have it, filled and sanded. It would be a case of fill, sand, repeat, fill, sand, repeat until you get the finish you want. As much of this will need to be cut out, all of this area here, and part of this area from a cursory glance at the prototype. I'll leave the final finish until I've actually added and embellished and added some details to it. There's a piece needs to be added onto the back, onto the fuselage, for example. But that's basically how to splice together, or how I would splice together a steri form. There are lots of other ways, I'm sure, but that's just the way I've done it. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that you might find it useful. If I just swivel around here, of course this is totally it's been totally unsanded, but you get a feel of what it's going to look like on the model. Hope you enjoyed that. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Until next time, get flying. If you can't get flying, let's get creative.